I'm Amy Rossman, Executive Director of Rodman for Kids, a nonprofit focused on empowering youth charities to build brighter futures for kids, and your co-host of the Brighter Futures podcast.
And I'm Jane Lima, Marketing and Communications Manager at Rodman for Kids, your other co-host of the Brighter Futures podcast, where we'll be telling the stories behind the impact in the people building brighter futures.
This isn't just a podcast about impact. It's about the people behind it. The communities who come together, the connections that drive change, and the shared belief that we can build something better for kids together.
On the Brighter Futures podcast, we will shine a light on the partnerships, programs, and people behind the impact, because brighter futures don't just happen, they're built together. Alrighty, so today we're straying from what our typical format is going to be, where we interview someone from outside of our organization, and we're going to interview each other. So like I said, normally we'd introduce you to our guest with a bit of background, but since we're your guests and we already introduced ourselves in the last episode, I'm just going to say go back and give episode 0.5 a listen if you're curious about who we are, so we can get right into this. So let's do it.
It also says in the notes, if you're curious about why we're qualified to do this, but Jane skipped that part because we are not at all qualified to do this. But here we are, and we're going to learn.
We are qualified, Amy. I won't whine on the podcast. I'm taking that rule for myself right now.
Okay. No whining. Highly qualified. Let's do it.
Each episode, we're going to go through our 3 pillars with some questions. So let's kick things off with our Empower section. So today's episode is all about change and embracing change and change in the nonprofit space and how it's never too late to evolve. So, Rodman for Kids made 2 major changes in the past year and a half. We moved our event that's been in September for 34 years. We moved that to a different time, and we also completely rebranded. So, I guess I'll kind of kick things off with a question for you, Amy. With this normally would be Ride Week. So how are we feeling?
We are feeling so much more relaxed than we have felt in mid-September for the past 20 years. It feels like something's missing a little bit because this season is always when all of that sort of pre-event anticipation is building up. But it also feels really good because the ride is behind us. It went off really successfully in May for the first time. And now we're gearing up for our other major event, Celebration for Kids, in November. So we're starting to reap the benefits of this sort of new calendar that we've planned out and a new flow to our year.
So why did we take the leap to change our calendar after 34 years?
Yeah, it's a great question that I've been asked a lot over the past several months. And there's no one simple answer, but it was a leap. It was, a real leap of faith to go ahead and make this change. But there were a lot of reasons. One was that the ride, where it always fell just a few weeks after Labor Day, it really posed a problem in terms of recruiting riders and connecting with volunteers and potential donors, because as anyone in this industry, or probably any industry knows, in the summer, it can be really tough to connect with people. Everyone is sort of off on vacation doing their thing, and they're not thinking about things that are happening in the fall, because the fall feels like it's so far off, even though it's really right around the corner. So we wanted to shift into a time of year where we could have a lot more engagement leading up to the ride. We also wanted to give ourselves a little breathing space. As I just mentioned, we have a second major event, and those 2 events were falling 9 weeks apart from each other, which left us with a calendar that was not only backloaded in terms of work, but in terms of fundraising. And as the leader of this organization, it was important to me to have a much more steady flow of income, of workload, and be able to forecast where things are going a little bit better. So we were really grateful that all of our charity partners took the move in stride, and, it works better with some of their calendars than others, but they've all found a way to make it work. And our first effort of having the ride in May went really well.
And, you're my boss, so I'm not saying this for, brownie points or anything, but as like you said, you're the leader of the organization. It's not just about maintaining that status quo. It's about being brave enough to ask, is there a better way? Is there something that we could change to make this better? And not only did we move the event, months ahead of when it normally is, but we also added a kids ride. We joked around all of the end of last year and beginning of this year, saying that we were just blowing it all up. Let's do it.
We ripped off the Band-Aid, made a lot of big changes all at once. And I think it's so easy to get caught in the pattern of, we do this because this is how we've always done it. And I think in the nonprofit industry, we see that even more, because unfortunately, more often than not, nonprofits are understaffed. Maybe they don't have the expertise to run their organization like a real business. So they're always just trying to keep up and keep the status quo. So there's not even time to think about a new way to do it. And I'm really grateful that our organization was in a position to sort of take a step back and really think about what would be better for us as an organization and what's going to make our impact greater. So yeah, so we went ahead and went for it. And as you mentioned, we added the kids ride too, which was really tiny to start this year, but it sort of builds on one of our values that philanthropy is for everyone. You don't have to have a lot of money to be charitable or philanthropic. Even little kids can do it. So it was awesome to see about 60 or 70 kids out there this year, riding their bikes, some of them with training wheels, and raising money to help other kids have all the things that they're fortunate enough to have. So just the beginning of some really exciting changes.
And didn't our founder, Don Rodman, didn't he have a saying, you can give your time?
You can give your time, you can give your shoulder, you can give your heart. And he even wrote a book about, a dozen or so of his friends who were philanthropists in different ways and sort of what their backgrounds and upbringings were to try and help young people understand that anyone really can be a philanthropist and give back. And like I said, that's one of the core values that we try and carry through everything we do at the organization.
Yeah. So can you walk me through, like, as the leader of the organization, how's it gone now that we're in the thick of it? We're in September. Like you said, the ride is behind us as of right now, and we're already starting to think about, well, we've already started thinking about months ago what 2026 is going to look like. But how has it gone? What was the experience moving it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gone really well. That's not to say there weren't some growing pains, especially in the months of January to May. Usually we're gearing up for the year. We sort of had to wrap up a ride and put on another ride in the course of about 8 months. But none of that was unexpected because we came into this with a real strategic viewpoint about what it was going to take to pull it off, and with really realistic ideas about, maybe fundraising is going to dip a little bit, maybe participation is going to dip a little bit. In the long run, that dip is gonna help us take it to the next level. So I'm grateful for our team that was sort of up for the challenge of this crazy turnaround. And I think we're on the other side of the trickiest part of the change, that first 5 months. And now it's feeling really good, and we'll continue to.
Yeah.
Hopefully you agree.
I do.
Good.
Obviously. But I'm just, as you're talking, I'm just thinking about the little kids at the ride and how stinking cute they were in their giant helmets and their little bikes. And it was definitely a learning year in a lot of ways.
It was. But every year is a learning year, right? Yes. In events and anything you do. But again, I think we went into this year with the right frame of mind of knowing like everything we're doing is sort of a pilot. This new calendar is a pilot. The kids ride is a pilot. We don't expect it to be perfect. So let's go do it. Let's do the best we can. Let's have a lot of fun, make sure it's safe, and then just be really thoughtful about our feedback loops and make sure that we can learn as much as possible and make it better. But I think it was really special for me. And on a personal note, my son was one of the riders in our little tiny ride, which was a small obstacle course. And to see that these kids as young as 4 years old really had an understanding of what they were doing, that they weren't just riding their bikes with their friends, but that they were helping other kids. I've got to think that's going to stay with them, especially if they keep doing this year after year. And it feels really good to know that we're helping form that next generation.
Hearing your son, Teddy, walk around and say, like, let's go play Rodman Ride for kids.
Yes.
Is just the cutest thing ever.
Yes.
And he is, like I was, it's ingrained in him from birth. So
I hope so.
I love it.
He and our neighbor friend like to set up cones and ride their scooters and bikes through and play Rodman Ride for kids. So that's a pride point for me for sure.
Yes. And also what you were saying about, kind of this year being a pilot, this podcast is a pilot.
This is the pilot of all pilots. But
it's also our pilot episode.
It is a pilot episode of a pilot project with pilot hosts. But Jane was so enthusiastic about this idea, and it was so well thought out that I was like, how do we not give this a shot? And she's got us all really excited about it. So
yeah, if you've got feedback and thoughts on this podcast,
yes,
make sure you send it to me.
We want to hear it. And, on the note of some, things that Jane has been excited about and move forward. She mentioned earlier that last year our organization underwent a major rebrand, completely new logo, completely new look. And we work with some great professionals outside of our team, but Jane was very much the one who spearheaded it inside the house here. What was that like for you, Jane? Because you're only 4 years into your career in marketing, not into your whole career. So what was that like for you to take that on?
Absolutely wild to be in a Zoom meeting with John Connors and the team at Boathouse, who are these like I just look up to that entire group, that family so much, and to have a Zoom call with them. And at one point, I remember I said something about, maybe our tagline is empower, connect, uplift, which we did not end up going with, if you know Rodman for Kids. But when John Connors came off of mute and said, I love that idea, I was like, oh my God, I've made it. I can retire right now. I can retire. No, it was really, really special. And I'm glad that I got to do it so early in my career because I have it under my belt. And I think something that, I've shared with you over the last 4 years is that I'm just trying to be a sponge. I don't have a marketing background education wise, but I've been doing this for 4 years now. And I like to think I'm okay at it. And so going into that meeting, there was a lot of imposter syndrome of like, I am not qualified to do a rebrand. I am not qualified to have opinions on our logo and our color. But one thing I will say about me, for better or for worse, is I'm opinionated and I'm not quiet about it. And even when I'm trying, even if I'm trying to hold that in a call with the John Connors and Boathouse professionals of the world, I'm still going to have feedback. And I think it was, again, a big learning curve for me to sit there and have my opinions taken seriously by these professionals. And it was both, like I said, a sponge of that I learned so much over the course of that, but also gave me a lot of confidence in my role of like, I can have a seat at that table, even though I'm only 4 years into my career.
Absolutely. And I think for all of us, it was just such a learning experience. You see a logo or a tagline for a brand and you have no idea. I mean, what I learned about color, and what this blue means versus that shade of green, and rounding this font just a little bit gives this, it was fascinating. And it gives me so much more appreciation, not only for our brand and where we landed, but for any brand you see. You start to really understand what goes into that. But I agree. You having that experience so early on, what a great time for you to pick up on all of that and get to absorb all the wisdom.
It's been so fun. And then getting this year, we did all of the work last year to figure out the colors and the fonts and the logo and the brand voice and tagline and all of that. And then I remember like last November maybe, we were talking about, we were unveiling the brand at Celebration and it was all going to be great. And then I don't know what day it was, but I woke up in the middle of the night going, and then I have to do it.
Then you have to do it. Yes.
Yeah. Like it's not, we've been building up to the launch of this and then you have to do it. Like you have to unveil it. Like
it. Yeah.
I have to scrub the umbrella from our website and from every piece of marketing materials and just completely change it over. And so
stars everywhere now.
Stars everywhere.
Yeah. But you've killed it. And I think what's really unique about our organization especially is that sometimes people rebrand because they feel like nobody knows who they are or they don't have a strong foothold in their sector. But people knew who Rodman for Kids was. We had pretty solid brand recognition. So that wasn't why we went about this. It was really about redefining the organization. So I think that was a really special element of it too, that you got to learn a lot more about, as did I.
Yeah. The evolution of Rodman for Kids.
For sure.
So I guess, again, kind of what I've learned, and I know that you and I have talked about this as well, as like whether you're 4 years in or you're 20 years into your career, like change is going to happen. It's going to happen no matter what. And it can be the start of something even bigger than what you expected.
It usually is. I mean, change is hard, but usually it's leading you to something better. And I think if you can get in a frame of mind to embrace that and maybe even look forward to it, it can be a lot of fun. We've gone through a lot of change at this organization over the past 5 or 6 years. And if we resisted it, we would not be where we are now. No questions.
I mean, and even just this podcast, like we've been talking about, and I think this is a good kind of segue into our next segment of the podcast, talking about connection, is just why we're doing this. And I think that, a big part of who we are is collaboration. We're always talking about how we're a collaborative hub for nonprofits. And, that's the podcast in and of itself. This is an act of collaboration between you and I, between the rest of the staff, our charity partners, our theater partners, the kids we impact, the community. It's just, this is only possible, and change in general is only possible because of trust and teamwork, both internal and external. And so just being able to create that space for other people's voices, like this isn't just about your perspective or my perspective, or even going into the rebrand, thinking about that. This isn't what Jane and Amy want, which we learned that really quick when we wanted
know,
to.
Because our logo would be a different color if it was about what we wanted. And we don't have to tell them. We don't have to tell them what it would have been. But we're glad it's not that.
We're very glad it's not that.
And we're glad we listened to the pros and we learned a lot.
We sure did.
And we'll just leave it at that.
But again, thinking of, the overlapping themes of the rebrand with the podcast, just like our organization and our brand, this platform is for many people. It's not just for us. And so collaboration is such a huge part of what we do. And that's why I'm really excited about the podcast, being able to collaborate with so many different people in a new way for us.
Absolutely. I mean, collaboration, it's something we foster with the partners, but I think we really walk the walk internally too, in terms of how we collaborate as a team. And this podcast is an example of that. It's been a team effort from day one. What is, this was sort of your brainchild, Jane. What has that meant to you to get to build something brand new in collaboration with the team?
Again, I think thinking about change, like we've been discussing, there was the element of imposter syndrome. I will be honest with you. I was up at 4:30 this morning thinking, am I qualified to do this? And Amy quickly told me, no, you're not, but that's okay. But it's been really, really exciting. I think, as you do work, and like I said, I've been here for 4 years now, and you kind of get into, and this more than anyone because you've been at the organization for 20 years, but you get into a cycle and like, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to, next up is celebration. So I know that I have to do the signage and the marketing plan and all of these things. And so adding something new and exciting that still is so mission oriented and aligned with who we are was just such an exciting prospect for me. And I know I said that I did a podcast earlier this year. I was featured on one, and literally I hopped off that call and wrote the proposal for you because I was so excited to do something new that I felt, again, a podcast is literally a collaborative piece of media. Like, what better platform for us to be on when we are an organization that's all about collaboration? So It's been so exciting. But again, thinking of the collaboration and like working with charity partners, we're going to have them featured on the podcast. You've worked with all of our charity partners and community voices over the years, and in a new way, we're using those voices to kind of help shape this podcast. What did you learn about the power of connection through kind of this process and over the 20 years that you've been here?
That's a great question. I think we're built for connection. We need connection for every facet of our lives, right? And again, in this industry, I think the nonprofit industry, it's unique in that many people are under-resourced and overworked. And by nature, if you're in this field, you are probably a deeply feeling, empathetic person who cares so much about making a difference for others. And it can be lonely. That work can be really lonely. And I say that realizing for us, that's not even the case, but I'm thinking about people who are doing the direct service work, that real boots on the ground, hard work day in and day out, seeing people who maybe are suffering in some way, or, who aren't healthy, or whatever it is, that direct service work can be really hard. And when you start to realize, like with anything else, whatever you're going through, when other people are pushing through the same problem, suddenly you don't feel so alone. And you feel like you've got a community around you. And I think that's part of what we do best. And it's sort of an accidental piece of our organization that I don't think Don Rodman ever meant to create, but it happened just organically, is that we've created this ecosystem of nonprofits that are in it together, and we can help facilitate opportunities for them to just learn from one another, to vent to one another, to collaborate to better serve their kids, and just know that they're not in this work alone. And that's probably my favorite thing about this job, is being sort of at the center of this hub of all these incredible organizations and incredible people who devote their life's work to these incredible causes. Just incredible. I keep saying that word because it's the one, but it's all about connection.
I don't think I realized before, because nonprofit is such it's such a community-based sector. We're always, for the most part, working to impact people in our communities, whatever way it might be. And I don't think I realized that when you work in a nonprofit, it can be isolating.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, like you were saying, like it can get lonely. Like I think of those organizations that are like a one man team. Like you have the
Mm-hmm.
executive director who's also the founder, who's also doing the boots on the ground work, who's the finance, the market, like those
Yeah.
one person teams, like who do they go to? And I think, like you were saying, that's my favorite part of the job is like
They come
you can
to
come to
us.
us.
They
You can
can
come
come
to
to
us.
us, or they can come to us and we'll tell them who they can go to.
Right.
And even as you get into a shop our size, you're the only marketing person. There's only 2 or 3 development people. Like we're tiny. It's even harder for this 1 or 2 person shops. But there's just I love the community that we've created, and I think that's as we move forward with our charity partner program, what we're going to keep doing more and more of.
Yeah. I think there are other organizations that have, you know, arts programs. There are other organizations that do bike rides, but I don't know of any organization that's doing the work to bring these organizations together so that it's not an isolating field. We're not fighting for donor dollars. We're amplifying each other's work. We're collaborating on programming. Like it's just awesome. So, you know, and again, bringing it back to the podcast, I just hope that this is one more way for our community to stay connected, whether it be our charity partners that are hopefully tuning in and listening, or, you know, our supporters, our board members, because again, we practice what we preach, and we know that collaboration is where change begins. So I'm excited about that.
Me too.
Again, thinking about change and all of that, like staying rooted in our mission and in your mission at other organizations, it makes the change a little less scary. Thinking about your mission as your North Star, even when like the how we're doing it changes, keeping sure that why stays the same. And that's, you know, as the marketing person, I'm always looking at the why first and then going how, what, you know,
Mm-hmm.
doing it that way. And change can be hard. So when things are shifting, whether it be, you know, you're changing your event calendar, you're rebranding, you're starting a podcast, like it can be very easy to get lost in the shuffle. And we talk about being deep in the weeds a lot, but obviously staying grounded in the mission, like I was just saying, is helps make the process more energizing rather than scary. So can you talk about how you've seen, you know, the mission of Rodman for Kids kind of guide the team through these transitions?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on the key phrase at your North Star. As an organization, I think we know exactly who we are and what we want to accomplish and what our values are. And some of that goes back to our late founder, Don Rodman. This organization does not look anything like it did when he was still here, but the core values at the heart of what we do are the values that he established. And if you can be really true to those values and keep them at the center of every decision you make and the direction you're taking, you're never going to drift too far from where you should be, I don't think. So whether it was the rebrand, whether it's going into the podcast, if we just think about how is it going to help us empower, connect, uplift, how is this going to help us make sure that kids have access to the programs, resources, and opportunities they need? If we just keep asking ourselves those questions and make sure we have answers, then it's really easy to figure out what direction to go in. And we try to always evaluate, I think, on those things, no matter what we're doing, like down to every post you post on social media, right? Like, how does this feed into what our goals are for this week or this quarter or this year? So it's really just always staying true to that. And it's easy to get lost. So you have to ask yourself the question a lot to make sure you stay on track.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you stay focused on what matters and not? Because you have a lot of moving pieces. Again, you're still relatively new to the marketing world, even though you've been through so much experience in 3 or 4 years because of the time and our trajectory when you joined the organization. But how do you kind of keep all those moving parts in order and prioritize them and keep it straight?
I think similar, like again, keeping the North Star of our mission at the focus. But I think for me, having those 3 pillars kind of defined when we did our rebrand, because again, it's so easy to get in the weeds and focus on like, okay, I need to figure out what we're going to post for this Instagram reel, or we have to send this email, whatever it might be. Coming back to that question of like, what is this coming back to that serves the overall goal of the organization, which is to empower, connect, and uplift youth-focused charities. And having those 3 words like literally all over my office helps keep me streamlined, because that's every single thing I do should come back to that in some way. And I mean, like logistically, I write everything down and I have lists for everything, and that's how I stay focused on all the moving parts. But it's really making sure that everything comes back to those 3 pillars. That has been a game changer in my my role is having three things to look at that I'm like, every single thing we do should hit on one, if not all of these.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think just staying rooted in the mission kind of gave me, and I know that it gave us as an organization, kind of the confidence to step into something new, both again with everything, the rebrand, the moving of the calendar, starting the podcast. And I hope that that's something that we continue to share with each other internally, externally, with all of our listeners. So yeah. So every episode, something that we're going to be starting is asking our guests this question. So it's only fair that you and I answer it too.
Okay.
What is a person, activity, or a memory from your childhood that shaped who you are today?
I love that question. And it's this, to me, this question like can help anyone connect with our cause. I always say when I talk about our cause, like people say, how do you, it's not like cancer. Everyone's been affected by cancer, unfortunately. And I always say like everyone's been a child. We were all a child at some point. Like 100% of people should be able to connect to this cause. And what allows you to do that is to go back to your own childhood and think about that. And for me, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, kind of going off of that, what makes Rodman for Kids unique in that is that not every kid has had a mentor, or not every kid, went to their local YMCA, and not every kid did this and that, but every kid did something.
Everyone had someone or something that helped them, that changed their trajectory. Everyone, whether it's a teacher, a relative, a friend, like we all had somebody. The person that comes to mind for me immediately with this question was my high school band director, Dr. Robert Perry. I was sort of a natural leader as a young person. It was, like me.
No.
Shocking. I know. I was the drum major of the marching band, and I always wanted to be the section head of whatever instrument I was playing. I just always wanted to be in that leadership position. And I did pretty well with that in my little niche in band. And I'll never forget him sitting me down one of my last weeks of high school. He called me into his office, which was kind of rare for him to call you in for a one-to-one. And he had a really candid conversation with me about, you've sort of been in this top dog leadership position in a place where you're really comfortable and your peers respect you and you have a lot of good friends. And that's easy. That's an easy place for you to sit. It's not going to be easy for you when you go off to college and you get in the real world, and that's not naturally where you fall. And it might take you some time to get into those leadership positions or into those circles where you feel comfortable. And you've got to be okay being sort of back at the bottom of the ladder, the bottom of the mountain, for lack of a better analogy. And that has always sat with me. And I've found that I do thrive the most when I'm in a position of leadership, whether it's obviously here at this organization when I'm the one who's planning the vacation with my girlfriends, like whatever it is, like I want to be in the role that's leading the charge, and that's where I'm most comfortable. But he really made me aware of the fact that I had to learn how to sit in both places and everywhere in between. One of many, many things I learned from him, but that's the first one that comes to mind.
I love it. Okay. So for me, I think I am always like thinking back to like the collaboration thing and being a team player. I think back to my middle school basketball team, which is really interesting because I'm not an athlete, and everyone is always shocked that I played sports in middle school and high school.
I continue to be shocked that you played sports in middle school and high school.
Shockingly, not a theater kid, despite what my office and my personality kind of gives you. But I was the leading scorer on my middle school basketball team. And people are always really impressed by that until I share that the highest score was 7 points in a season. In the season, 7 points. So what I gathered from that is that winning's not everything, and that you really got to be a team player, because 7 points in a season is not going to win you any basketball game. So I feel like it ties very well into what we do now, in that the collaboration and working well with others. And I needed that when I was in middle school, because we certainly weren't winning any games. Okay, so now my personal favorite part of the podcast, and something that we're going to continue with all of our guests, is answering a question submitted by a kid. And normally it'll be a kid that our work impacts, but we felt, because we've talked about him in the beginning of the episode, that it was only fitting that Mr. Teddy submit some questions for the two of us. And he was the first one to say that this is a hard-hitting question. So let's do it.
Remember how I told you that me and Janie are recording our first podcast today? At the end, each time we're going to have a question from a kiddo, and we want you to be the first one. So what question do you want me and Janie to answer at the end of our interviews of each other?
I want you guys to see what your favorite foods are.
Okay, that's a good question.
And that's going to be a hard one,
too. It is going to be a hard one. You're right.
And also favorite ice cream.
And our favorite ice cream.
Yes.
You got it. Thank you for those questions, Teddy.
You're welcome.
So, Amy, what is your favorite food? And what is your favorite ice cream flavor?
This is hard hitting. Favorite ice cream flavor is easy. It's got to be mint chip. Preferably on a waffle cone, but if the waffle cone's not made in-house, if I can't see them making the waffle cone, I'm just going to get it in a sugar cone.
Hard disagree on that favorite flavor,
well, we'll
but
have
it's okay.
to agree to disagree.
It's
favorite
fine.
food is really hard for me, and it sort of depends on the season. Like if it's summer, it's a lobster roll, but must be consumed by the ocean. If it's winter, it's probably some kind of lamb or like something really delicious and hearty like that.
I have never had lamb.
I'm going to cook you lamb someday, Jane. My cinnamon lamb stew is top notch.
Okay.
You remind me in January. It's the perfect time for cinnamon lamb stew.
You got it.
But if I have to pick a favorite, I'm going to go with, geez, Teddy, I'm going to go with a perfectly seared scallop. Final answer.
Wow. Okay. New England girl through and
New
through.
New England girl.
I love it. Mine, Teddy, fabulous question, and I'm so glad you asked. Favorite food, it has to be some sort of pasta alla vodka. I love a pink cream sauce. I could eat that every meal, probably for the rest of my life, and be very content. Favorite ice cream flavor, 100% chocolate peanut butter cup.
That's fair.
I just love peanut butter. I just love it. Thank you for submitting your question, Teddy, and I'm sure that we will have a lengthy discussion about it after the podcast is dropped.
And as always, we'd like to leave you with a reflection question. Today's question is, how do you embrace change, and how can you shift your mindset to see it as a positive thing?
Thank you for listening to the Brighter Futures podcast, where every story we share is a reminder that brighter futures don't just happen, they are built together. If today's episode moved you, consider sharing it or leaving us a review. And if you want to learn more about how you can be a part of this journey, visit www.rodmanforkids.org.